feeling that we're being watched.
2.5 miles away, Dr. Mireya Mayor and Ronny LeBlanc are approaching the eastern edge of the clearing. They've brought with them the high-powered speaker system, loaded with suspected Bigfoot howls, a tool Mireya has already used with success.
From the use of high-powered speakers to release what they believe to be Bigfoot calls, while also setting what may prove to be a controversial bait, to making use of high-tech equipment such as thermal cameras to scan the area for the legendary cryptid. Here's how Ronny LeBlanc accidentally used Mireya Mayor as bait during the sighting of Bigfoot. The search for Bigfoot seems endless at this point. For decades, we've heard many tales of this hairy bipedal humanoid creature that seems to linger in the woods of North America. Indeed, many of these people have sworn that they have had first-hand encounters with these creatures. Not only have they run into it in the woods and forests when they went camping and hiking, some have had frightening encounters with it right outside their own homes. As if these anecdotal accounts aren't eerie or compelling enough, others have come up with photos or clips of this creature. Others have even come up with other types of evidence such as castings of its footprints. Some have even sworn that they emerged from these woods with the body of this legendary creature. As such, the legend of Bigfoot is alive and well in the culture of the United States of America, if not the world in its entirety. As fascinating as such evidence may seem to be, the true mystery of this creature is that there just doesn't seem to be any real proof that Bigfoot actually exists.
That's right. What in the heck is that? That looks like a Bigfoot.
Crazy, right? Especially with the so-called proof that many have come up with over the years. Even the Bigfoot enthusiasts seem to find it hard to believe in the stories that their peers came up with when they claimed that they had run-ins with the legendary cryptids. As if that isn't bad enough, the skeptics make matters worse by scoffing at the blurry photos and videos that have been produced over the years. Add the fact that many of those castings and bodies that we mentioned earlier have been confirmed as hoaxes, and we just have to come to terms with the fact that Bigfoot may just be the figment of our imagination. That said, this hasn't stopped many from doing their all to help us confirm that Bigfoot is really out there. Decades ago, we had people like Grover Krantz, the respected anthropologist, who couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that Bigfoot must be real and that it must have been some sort of undiscovered species. Apparently, he was one of the people who believed that Bigfoot must be a relative of Gigantopithecus, an ancient giant ape that is long gone extinct. Having come to such a conclusion thanks to the study of footprint evidence that he came across over the years, there may be some credibility to what he concluded when he took on the challenge of discovering Bigfoot.
In excess of 6.5, 7 feet in height perhaps, and quite bulky. It appears very substantial. That is, the arms and the legs are not spindly, they appear to be thick and muscular.
Aside from this pioneer, we have modern-day Bigfoot researchers who are still dedicated to the cause, such as Jeff Meldrum, a well-known professor of anatomy and anthropology at Idaho State University. He has added his knowledge to the cause by studying Bigfoot footprints that he has come across over the years. Add this to the potential anatomical authenticity that he has studied as well. He is still working hard to bring the legend of Bigfoot to an end by confirming its existence. While people like Grover Krantz and Jeff Meldrum have added their bits to the lore of Bigfoot, it's fair to say that they are yet to bring Bigfoot out of the darkness. That is why we are thankful for the cast of the Expedition Bigfoot team. Those who are familiar with the Travel Channel documentary series will happily tell you about how this team of specialists search for the much-needed evidence that will help us prove that Bigfoot is real once and for all. As such, you'd find that week after week, people like Dr. Mireya Mayor, a primatologist, anthropologist, and wildlife correspondent for National Geographic with years of experience, have dedicated her life and effort to the cause of proving that Bigfoot is real. To be honest, having a specialist such as Dr. Mireya Mayor on the team is almost invaluable, as she has experience in discovering similarly rare and perhaps unknown species. After all, she was part of the team that discovered a new species of lemur in the past. Considered to be the female Indiana Jones thanks to her work out there in the field, there might not be a better person for the job when it comes to hunting Bigfoot down. As impressive as Dr. Mireya Mayor may be, she, along with the rest of the cast, would also be delighted to have people like Russell Acord on the team. A retired Army sergeant and survivalist, His years of experience when it comes to his fieldwork and his search for Bigfoot cannot be undermined, as he has been searching for the legendary cryptid since the 1970s. Add the fact that he wrote books such as Footprints of a Legend and Bigfoot and the Tripwire, and you may find that you might not find anyone who is more dedicated to the cause of finding Bigfoot today. Fieldwork. Truth be told, the search for Bigfoot is as unglamorous as they come. Just take a look at the time that Dr. Mireya Mayor and Russell Acord were out there searching the dark, murky woods for Bigfoot. They had taken on this field trip along with Ronny LeBlanc, a well-known Bigfoot researcher and author who also has many years of experience and research under his belt, as he has been out there investigating Bigfoot sightings and encounters. Thanks to these years of experience, he comes with a ton of knowledge when it comes to the lore centered around the legendary creature. During this particular field trip, we find that Dr. Mayor and LeBlanc were exploring the woods with high-powered speakers. As they made their way to the eastern edge of the clearing found in said woods, they just couldn't shake off the eerie feeling that they were being watched. Many have claimed that they have felt the exact same feeling when they were in the woods looking for the legendary hominid. Who knows? Maybe they were being watched by Bigfoot as they made their way through the woods. What was interesting about this expedition into the woods is that Dr. Mayor and LeBlanc were out there with their high-powered speakers with intent in mind. You see, these speakers were loaded with what they believed to be Bigfoot calls and howls. You could tell that the pair was excited about what they had on their hands, because apparently Dr. Mayor had actually had some success with these sounds. With any luck, they may actually be able to draw Bigfoot out with these howls. As exciting as the high-powered speakers were, LeBlanc was also on his toes at this moment. Not only was this because they seemed to be running out of time as they were out there in the woods, it was also because he had something up his sleeves that would help amplify their efforts with the high-powered speakers. However, it seemed as if he would need Dr. Mayor to cooperate with his rather interesting plans. Once he had her attention, LeBlanc shared his plans with the doctor. He felt that he could trust her to see the reason behind his plans, because she had been out there the longest, and she may actually be familiar with what he was about to propose. You see, based on his experience, he had every reason to believe that Bigfoot seemed to be drawn to women. Wow, right? As crazy as this may seem, his assumptions were not based on rubbish. You see, according to his research, the Native Americans of old gave accounts of how women had been kidnapped back in the day. Hoping to take advantage of such a theory, he proposed that the pair went their separate ways. After this, she would set up their high-powered speaker system in the middle of the clearing while he watched from an elevated position. This seems fair enough, right? While he watched from a vantage point, LeBlanc could let Dr. Mayor know if he heard something, while she would also let him know if she heard something while she was on ground. Seems fair enough, right? As well thought out as this plan seemed to be, I think everyone could sympathize with Dr. Mayor, who couldn't help but feel as though she was being used as bait. What do you mean Bigfoot is more likely to kidnap women? Even if that is the case, why would you want to risk her hide on such a hunch? As worried as she may have seemed, Dr. Mayor decided to be a trooper and go along with the plan. After all, there is some credence to LeBlanc's plan. She has experienced this with apes, especially as she had been out there the longest. These creatures tend to feel more familiar with people they have been exposed to the longest, and as such, Dr. Mayor just happened to be the perfect candidate for being bait. Sure, she may feel a bit sore about it because she felt she was being used as bait only because she was a woman, but that may just be a coincidence. If it was possible that her presence out there would draw the creature out, they may just have to go ahead with the plan. With that in mind, the first thing they did was to help LeBlanc look for that vantage point. It had to be a good one too, so that she doesn't end up getting kidnapped by the legendary cryptid. For the first time ever, she must have hoped that they didn't run into Bigfoot. Game time. With the plan being set between the pair, they got to work executing their plan. At the same time, Bryce Johnson, another one of the key members of the Expedition Bigfoot team, was hard at work monitoring the command center. He was there to monitor the northwestern region of the clearing. Thanks to the new surveillance camera system that they were working with in the command center, Johnson felt that he could monitor the region better than ever. While working with this new surveillance system, he also had his mind on the rest of the team. He knew that they were working hard to draw Bigfoot out of hiding with their plans, although he may not be aware that LeBlanc was hoping to use Dr. Mayor as bait. That said, He knew that he had to keep an eye on the pair just so that he could know what was going on with them. With that in mind, Dr. Mayor and LeBlanc seemed to be holding their positions. Just as they planned, LeBlanc was at his vantage point, while the good doctor was making her way to her spot so that she could make use of the high-powered sound system. What was interesting was that at the same time, Russell Acord was also monitoring the scene with his thermal camera. With this thermal camera, he was hoping to be on hand to catch anything that may come out of hiding while they were still in the darkness. With any luck, they may actually be able to capture a clear image of Bigfoot as it makes itself known to the entire world. As easy as this may sound, Russell did take notice that there seemed to be a lot of fog in the area. That being said, he believed that the thermal camera would be able to overcome this challenge. With his camera, he may be able to zoom in from 1,000 miles away so that he could get a clear image of whatever may come through the clearing. This is truly an exciting time for the crew as they pushed on with their search for the legendary Bigfoot. With everyone in their respective positions, it seemed as though they were good to go. Once Dr. Mayor made it known that she was in her position next to the high-powered speakers, she also let them know that she was ready to play the so-called Bigfoot howls for all to hear. Once she was sure that everyone was in their position, she released the call. The tension in the air was palpable as the sound ripped through the silence of the night. After the first blast, the team may have been a bit disappointed because it was followed by an eerie silence. It was almost as though all the creatures in the woods had run off because they were familiar with the sound. It was almost as though they wanted to avoid having an encounter with Bigfoot themselves. Well, tell that to Dr. Mireya Mayor and the rest of the Expedition Bigfoot team, who waited with bated breath for something to come out of the darkness. After soaking the eerie silence in for several minutes, the team decided that the best thing for them to do was to play the sound again. Maybe they could trigger the legendary creature out of its hiding place this time. Once they came to this decision, Dr. Mayor blasted that Bigfoot howl once more. From his vantage point, LeBlanc reached out to Dr. Mayor to note how unnerving the silence was. He didn't have to tell her, she was well aware of the type of silence that was engulfing her. They all knew that the search for Bigfoot was a game of patience. After all, how many people had spent years searching for this creature, only to come away with nothing? It almost seemed annoying, especially as there were many who claimed to have run into the creature by accident. That being said, the team knew that they had to give their wait a bit more time. Sure, it was a bit annoying, but that was just the nature of the game. Moments later, though, it seemed as though their patience seemed to pay off because LeBlanc seemed to pick up the heat signature of something that was out there with them. Reaching out to Dr. Mayor, he told her that there was something out there with her to her right. Gosh, how scary! How exciting! Could it be that she was being approached by the legendary cryptid? Well, only time will tell. Somehow, Dr. Mayor was able to hold her resolve. Imagine knowing something was out there with you in the dead of night and you can't see it. Well, it was fair enough to come to the conclusion that she had drawn something out with her Bigfoot howls. That said, she must have been scared out of her wits because although LeBlanc kept on telling her that there was something close to her on her right side, she couldn't pick this presence up herself. How annoying. What may have been even more annoying about the moment was that although the creature was picked up by LeBlanc from afar, it seemed to have disappeared just as quickly as it came. It was almost as though it was trolling the pair. As disappointed as the pair was in the moment, they may have had to take some solace from this experience because the course of events may have told them this may actually be Bigfoot. After all, fewer creatures are as elusive as the legendary cryptid. In those moments, the pair decided to review what they had just experienced. Dr. Mayor asked LeBlanc if he had heard anything to respond to the Bigfoot vocalizations she had released before he noticed the strange presence that appeared and disappeared. Interestingly enough, although he didn't hear a response, he did hear the sound of something. With such a response, Dr. Mayor could only ask him to keep scanning the area to see if they could pick up any other presence in the area. In response to this request, LeBlanc gave the area a quick scan. He must have been disappointed when he didn't pick anything up with his camera. Well, such is the nature of the search for Bigfoot. Considering how things went, the pair decided that it may be best for them to bring their experiment to an end. After agreeing to head back to camp so that they could meet up with Bryce Johnson and perhaps Russell Acord, the pair gave a brief review of their experience while they were out there. Sure, they may not have gotten exactly what they may have wanted, but they did get a response. Although they couldn't really figure out what had emerged from the shadows, they knew that there must be something out there with them. After all, it wasn't a figment of LeBlanc's imagination that made him see that strange figure that lingered on the right of Dr. Mayor. With that in mind, Dr. Mayor and LeBlanc decided that before they left the area, they were going to give it a good slow scan. With such an overview of the region, they may actually be able to dig up something that was out there with them. Once they came to this conclusion, they dug out their torches and gave the area a quick scan. With their glowing red torches, they covered every blade of grass, hoping that they may be able to shed light on the creature that was lurking behind Dr. Mayor. Alas, although they spent a bit of time out there, they were unable to pick anything up. Maybe better luck next time. Well, hold up one second. Just as they were about to call it a night, LeBlanc suddenly noticed something may be out there with them, thanks to an image he caught with his camera. Right there in the center of the image, he noticed the heat signal of this being that was standing out there in the horizon. Could it be the creature that was lurking around Dr. Mayor back then? As they stared at the strange heat signal, they were even more fascinated by the fact that they noticed that it seemed to be moving. Truly amazing stuff. Just as they were about to give up, this fascinating image got their attention. What was even more amazing about what they were witnessing was that it seemed to be moving with an upright posture. Could this actually be Bigfoot? After all, we all know that Bigfoot is a bipedal creature that walks with an upright posture. The scene was truly fascinating to Dr. Mayor and LeBlanc. There was no doubt that they were looking at the legendary Bigfoot. If only they could get closer to this mysterious being. Maybe then they could actually be able to tell if this was the legendary creature. As it seemed to be so far away, there was nothing that they could do to determine exactly what they were looking at. As such, they were just going to have to deal with the fact that maybe, just maybe, they just had a close encounter with the legendary creature that is Bigfoot. Such is the nature of the search for the legendary cryptid. Sure, it is dangerous, but we all know that just adds to the excitement of the affair. However, try as you may, there just isn't any coaxing of the creature out of its hiding place. Ever elusive, it just seems to appear and disappear as it pleases. With any luck, though, their continuous efforts could bring the search for this creature to an end. From the use of high-powered speakers to release what they believe to be Bigfoot calls, while also setting what may prove to be a controversial bait, to making use of high-tech equipment such as thermal cameras to scan the area for the legendary cryptid, here's how Ronny LeBlanc accidentally used Mireya Mayor as bait during this sighting of Bigfoot. The expedition team, seasoned trackers with years of experience in the field, gathered around the markings. Silence hung over them, heavy with speculation. What had been taken, and more importantly, what had done the taking? With the kind of reverence reserved for a sacred discovery, they followed the trail, step by step, moving cautiously, their eyes scanning for more clues. The forest, alive with its usual whispers, seemed to hold its breath as they moved forward. Each dragged indentation in the ground led them closer, drawing them deeper into the unknown. Then, to their absolute amazement, it was there. The path of destruction led straight into a room. The realization hit like a shockwave. Whatever had been dragged, whatever force had done the dragging, had gone into that room. And then, unexplainably,
and to your absolute amazement, it has dragged it into the room. I have no words. Unbelievable.
Had vanished. The tension was palpable. Then, movement. A shadow flickered across the dimly lit interior, and before anyone could react, it was there. "Careful," one of them whispered, urgency sharpening the air. There it goes. Something massive, something powerful had been in that space all along, hiding, waiting, watching. And now, as if sensing the growing fear, it was on the move. A crash, a blur of movement. The team scrambled, instincts kicking in. Cameras swung up. Hands reached for whatever protection they could muster. But whatever had been lurking had made its decision. It was done hiding. "Oh my God," someone exhaled, voice shaky with adrenaline. "That is so crazy." No one knew what to say. The footage, later reviewed, would show the purest form of human reaction. Raw fear, awe, disbelief. The expedition had barely begun, and already they were in the presence of something beyond explanation. For nearly a decade, a single photograph had fueled relentless debate within the cryptid hunting community. Dubbed the Ranchita Wood Ape photo, The image depicted an imposing figure, hulking, shadowed, and unmistakably humanoid.
Zach, that thing just stood up like you and I would just stand up. Look at that. Dude!
To many, it was the definitive proof they had been waiting for. Bigfoot was real. Skeptics, however, weren't so easily convinced. Too many photos, too many grainy images that could easily be explained away. But this one had something different. The proportions, the posture, the eerie lifelike quality of its stance. It wasn't just another smudge of pixels. For the team, the need to investigate was irresistible. The search for Bigfoot had always been a game of patience and perseverance. Every shred of evidence, every clue had to be examined. So, they traced the image's origins, hoping to separate truth from lies. Their journey led them not to the dense, impenetrable forests of North America, but instead, oddly, to Southern California. And there, the trail took an unexpected turn. At the center of it all, a man named Mark Anders, a former comedian, a self-proclaimed bodybuilding instructor, and a man with an undeniable fascination with apes. His past was littered with failed entertainment ventures, including an obscure comedy show that never quite gained traction. When his ambitions in humor fizzled out, Anders found himself drawn to something new, Bigfoot. Utilizing an astonishingly high-quality costume, he and a collaborator began staging elaborate hoaxes. They filmed in various locations, carefully curating their content to appear authentic. Each video, each still image, was carefully crafted to feed into the growing legend. And yet, what made the Ranchita Wood Ape photo stand apart was its sheer believability. Even with the hoax exposed, even with the truth laid bare, the image retained an unsettling power. For those who had spent years searching for answers, it remained a symbol, a representation of how the line between reality and myth blurred so easily in the pursuit of the unknown. Well, one investigator muttered after reviewing the case, I guess this is what happens when entertainment ambitions collide with cryptid culture. The discovery was disappointing, but for the expedition team, it only strengthened their resolve. If fakes like this could be so convincing, what else was lurking out there, waiting to be uncovered? Unraveling the unnatural. As the team processed their findings, a new anomaly demanded their attention. A snake skin, stretching an unfathomable 21 meters in length. Even among the most seasoned explorers, silence fell at the sight of it. The sheer scale was almost incomprehensible. A beast of this size, how had it remained hidden? And more importantly, was it still out there? The leader of the expedition, a man known for his measured skepticism, ran a hand along the massive abandoned skin. Why, he mused aloud, would something like this exist in the first place? The discovery was made in a remote jungle, an environment thick with mystery. There were places in the world where nature still ruled, where creatures unseen by modern eyes thrived in the shadows. This was one of those places. For the team, it was another reminder of how little humans truly understood the wilderness. Every turn, every new finding, deepened the sense that something monumental was just beyond reach, watching, waiting. They had set out in search of Bigfoot, but it was becoming clear that they were uncovering something much bigger. And as the next leg of their journey began, one thing was certain. This was just the beginning. The bald mystery in the woods. The debate raged on. For years, the cryptid community had dissected, analyzed, and argued over one singular image. An image that, at first glance, seemed like just another questionable sighting, until experts began pointing out the impossible. The creature, captured mid-stride near the dense underbrush of an undisclosed location, had a strange, unnatural shine to its head. Not the shaggy, unkempt mane of a wild beast, but something smooth, reflective, bald. Digital imaging experts scrutinized every pixel, each shadow and highlight. They posed an unsettling question. If this were a bear, where was its fur? No bear, at least not one found in these forests, would sport such a feature. The light source beamed off its head in a way that made it almost otherworldly. But skepticism is the bedrock of any true investigation. Some dismissed the claim outright, calling it a weak argument, a desperate grasp at something beyond nature. It's a nitpick, one analyst scoffed, nothing more than a trick of light and shadow. Yet, as the discussion deepened, a far more pressing question emerged. Why was there only one photo? Modern photography has made it almost impossible to take just a single shot. Phones and cameras defaulted to burst mode, capturing sequences rather than solitary frames. Yet here, in the midst of what should have been a groundbreaking discovery, there was just one image. The figure wasn't running, it wasn't evading capture. It stood, solid and unmoving, within plain sight. So why? If the photographer had the perfect opportunity, had they failed to take more? Some theorized it could be the elusive skunk ape, Florida's own cryptid, known for its stealth and pungent odor. Others weren't so sure. There was something off about this photo, something carefully curated. The expedition team sat around their campfire that night, passing the image between them. Their search was already riddled with hoaxes and dead ends, but their instincts told them to press on. If this was a trick, it was a well-orchestrated one. But if it wasn't, then they were standing on the edge of something far greater than they'd ever imagined. Unidentified mysteries in the sky. As the expedition trudged deeper into the wilderness, a new anomaly reached their ears, not from the ground, but from the sky. A video, taken from West Virginia's Snowshoe Mountain Resort, was making waves. Something unknown, had been spotted streaking across the heavens. The footage was brief but haunting. A formation of lights moved in unison, carving a deliberate pattern through the night sky. Not a drone, not a satellite, something different. "That's insane," one of the researchers muttered, eyes fixed on the screen. "I've seen Starlink. I know what that looks like. But this," no one had an answer. Since the dawn of modern aviation, reports of unidentified aerial phenomena had surfaced in whispers and classified documents. The U.S. government had at times acknowledged and dismissed them, citing military experiments or weather balloons. But this was different. Even with the evidence before them, questions swirled. What was the purpose? Why were they moving in such tight synchronization? And if this was an orchestrated event, who was orchestrating it? The team had come to the wilderness in search of creatures that lurked in the shadows, but they were quickly realizing that the unknown wasn't confined to the earth beneath their feet. Something was watching. The Sarasota Encounter. December 22nd, just days before Christmas, the quiet community in Sarasota County, Florida, was wrapped in the usual seasonal stillness. Families prepared for holiday gatherings. Children dreamt of gifts under the tree. But for one family, that night brought something far beyond festive cheer. It began with a sound, a violent, jarring crash from their backyard deck. Furniture scraping, wood splintering, the kind of disturbance that sent a spike of adrenaline through the veins. Then came something far worse. A smell. Not just any odor, but something deep, guttural, rancid, like decay mingled with damp earth and unwashed fur. It rolled into the house like an invisible wave, thick enough to make eyes water. Heart pounding, one of them crept toward the window, phone in hand. Slowly, cautiously, they lifted the camera. What they saw made their blood run cold. A massive, hair-covered figure lumbered through the backyard, its shoulders hunched, its arms swaying heavily at its sides. It wasn't running. It wasn't even moving with urgency. It knew it was being watched, and it didn't care. The first instinct? An orangutan. It had to be. Surely an escape from a local zoo. But even as they whispered the possibility, doubt crept in. No zoo had reported a missing animal. Their minds raced for another explanation, but they had none. The next morning, shaken and still reeling from the encounter, they sent the photo to the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office. Within hours, whispers of the skunk ape, Florida's own legend, began circulating. Local cryptid researcher Dave Sheely, a veteran in the field, examined the evidence. For years, he had maintained that something lived in these swamps. He had cast footprints, documented sightings, followed leads deep into the Floridian wilderness. And now, he had new evidence. The footprint cast from the Sarasota backyard was unlike anything found in the region. It was massive, larger than any known primate, too large to be an orangutan, too structured to be a bear. Skeptics dismissed it, as they always did. A hoax, a misidentification. But those who had smelled the air that night, who had heard the weight of something enormous shifting across their deck, knew better. The creature was real, and it was still out there. The beast of Brassknocker Hill. The wilderness has always held its secrets. Some, whispered in local legends, take years to resurface. Others, like the mystery that gripped Somerset in the summer of 1979, explode into public consciousness overnight. It all started with a tree. Ron and Betty Harper had lived near Brassknocker Hill, just outside of Bath, for decades. Their land, bordered by thick woodlands, had never been anything but peaceful. But one morning in July of 1979, that peace was shattered. The massive oak tree that stood at the edge of their property, one that had stood unscathed for generations, had been completely stripped of its bark. Deep gouges, unnaturally large, marred its once smooth surface. At first, it was just one tree, then another, then dozens. By August 1st, more than 50 trees had been violently attacked. Their branches, some torn away at heights of over 50 feet, dangled like limp limbs. Experts were baffled. The force required to do such damage was beyond anything seen in the region. Whatever was responsible had teeth 20 times larger than a squirrel's, a predator of formidable strength. And then the silence came. Veteran foresters and locals alike reported something even more chilling than the destruction. The forest had gone still. No birds, no rustling leaves, no life. Animals had vanished. The squirrels that once darted playfully between trees were gone. The dawn chorus of birdsong was eerily absent. It was as if the entire ecosystem had recoiled from something unnatural. Then came the sightings. The first credible report came from Christopher Morris, a driver who, on a routine route through Moncton Combe, saw something that made his blood run cold. A 4-foot-long, bear-like creature, its piercing, white-rimmed eyes glowing in the darkness. Morris was just the beginning. More and more witnesses emerged, describing something between a baboon, a chimpanzee, a gibbon, and a lemur. It had the intelligence of a primate, the power of a predator, and the agility of something that had no place in England's forests. Panic took hold. The Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, RSPCA, issued warnings. Locals, fearing for their safety, took up arms. A man in his 80s, undeterred by his age, patrolled nightly with a shotgun, determined to defend his home. Even the police weren't immune to the chaos. Inspector Michael Price, a veteran officer, saw it with his own eyes, a feral chimpanzee, loose and untamed. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. The trees remained scarred, but the attacks ceased. The deafening silence of the forest lifted, replaced by the cautious return of birds and small animals. The beast, whatever it had been, was gone. Had it moved on? Had it ever existed at all? The mystery of Brassknocker Hill became one of England's most bizarre unsolved cryptid cases, a legend that refused to fade. But for those who had heard the unnatural silence, seen the destruction firsthand, and peered into those glowing eyes, one thing was certain: something had been there, and it could return. The Watcher in the Barn. Not all cryptid sightings happen in the depths of the forest. Sometimes the unknown creeps closer, to the edges of civilization, where human eyes and cameras await. A red barn, standing solitary against the landscape, had already become the focal point of a viral Bigfoot sighting. The first report had sparked heated debates. The footage, grainy and fleeting, showed something lurking near the structure, a hulking figure, just out of reach of clarity. Now, the man who had captured that footage was back. Determined to settle the mystery once and for all, he patrolled his property, camera in hand. And then, he saw it again. There, just behind the barn, a dark figure stood, motionless. His pulse quickened. He had convinced himself that his first sighting wasn't a trick of the mind, that something real had been there. But now, looking at this second encounter, doubt crept in. This time, it wasn't moving. The outline seemed too still, too rigid. A tree, maybe? Or could it be something propped up against the barn, deliberately placed to feed the legend? The internet erupted into speculation. Some believed, others scoffed. I bought into the first one, the narrator admitted, reviewing the footage. But this one? I don't know. It was the eternal problem of cryptid research. What's real? What's hoax? What's the trick of the eye? There was only one way to know for sure. He had to go closer. The unseen observer. After hours of tension, speculation, and analysis, the expedition needed a break. The intensity of the search for Bigfoot, the skunk ape, and now the Brassknocker beast had left them wound tight. Then, out of nowhere, a moment of levity. A prank? Maybe. A genuine sighting? That was up for debate. The camera panned, catching an unexpected figure in the distance. Unmistakably human but moving oddly, almost too fluidly for comfort. Laughter broke the tension. Was it a well-placed joke? A subtle nod to the absurdity of chasing shadows? Or was there something deeply unnerving about the way it just stood there, watching? The team exchanged glances, unsure whether to brush it off or to feel the weight of unseen eyes pressing upon them. Because in the wilderness, not everything strange hides in the shadows. Sometimes it watches from the light, the legacy of the unexplained. The wilderness has always held its mysteries, but not all are born of shadowed forests and elusive beasts. Some mysteries are man-made, shaped by catastrophe, left to fester in forgotten corners of the world. One such place? Chernobyl. The very name conjures images of desolation. A city abandoned in haste, a place where nature had been forever altered by humanity's recklessness. But among the ghosts of its past, life persisted, wild, mutated, and resilient. For decades, the wildlife of Chernobyl had been a subject of both fascination and fear. Some species thrived in the absence of humans, reclaiming the poisoned land as their own. Others bore the marks of radiation, grotesque mutations, warped bodies, unnatural growths. The expedition team, having spent days chasing creatures of legend, found themselves contemplating something equally bizarre: what we leave behind. The expedition was coming to an end, but as the team packed their equipment and prepared to return to the world of the known, one truth remains unshaken: the unknown was still out there. They had ventured into the forests, the swamps, the forgotten places of the world. They had followed the tracks, heard the whispers, and seen the evidence, and yet, for every answer they found, more questions arose. The search for Bigfoot was never just about proving its existence. It was about the pursuit of something greater, the understanding that some things remain hidden because they choose to be. Maybe Bigfoot was out there, watching from the trees just beyond reach. Maybe the skunk ape still lurked in Florida's swamps, waiting for the next unsuspecting witness. Maybe the beast of Brassknocker Hill would return one day, its silence broken once more. Or maybe, just maybe, we were never meant to find them. The night was calm as they made their way back, the hum of civilization growing louder. Yet, even as they left, something in the wild remained unchanged. A rustling in the underbrush, a shape that disappeared before the human eye could focus, a feeling that someone or something was still watching. Because legends don't die, they wait, and one day, when the time is right, they will return. The hunt never truly ends.